Which silent behaviors completely shatter an avoidance ego without them ever confessing it? Avoidants build their entire identity around being emotionally untouchable. They pride themselves on not needing anyone, not being affected by breakups, and being superior to emotional people. This isn't just confidence, it's their survival mechanism disguised as superiority. But their ego has a fatal flaw. It depends entirely on your continued emotional investment in them. When that investment disappears in specific ways, their behavior changes dramatically. They start doing things they swore they'd never do, acting in ways that contradict everything they claimed about themselves. The first action that completely dismantles their emotional superiority complex is dating someone who's everything they're not emotionally. When you genuinely connect with someone emotionally available, something fascinating happens to your avoidant ex's behavior. Think of it like watching someone who's always claimed they don't care about sports suddenly start checking scores obsessively when their favorite team makes the playoffs. Your new relationship becomes living proof that emotional connection actually works. Avoidants lose their favorite narrative, that emotional people are weak and needy. They can't dismiss your happiness as temporary or shallow when it's clearly thriving. Watch what happens next. They'll start mentioning their own emotional growth in conversations with mutual friends. Suddenly they're going to therapy, reading self-help books, or talking about how they're learning to be more open. Things they previously mocked become topics they casually bring up. They'll make sure this information gets back to you somehow, through friends, social media, or bumping into you. They need you to know they're capable of change, something they never felt like proving when you were directly asking for it. This isn't genuine growth. It's ego protection. They can't handle the idea that you found something better by choosing emotional availability over their superior emotional independence. Their behavior shifts from dismissing emotional connection to desperately trying to prove they possess it too. The most satisfying part is watching them struggle to demonstrate emotional availability while maintaining their cool, detached image. They end up looking like they're performing emotions rather than feeling them, which only proves your point more clearly. Never asking for their friendship or contact. Avoidants work like that friend who never initiates plans but always expects to be invited. They assume you'll eventually reach out wanting friendship, closure, or some form of connection. When months pass and you never make that reach, their behavior reveals how much they counted on your eventual contact. You'll start hearing through mutual friends that they've been asking about you, not directly, but casual questions about how you're doing, whether you're dating anyone, if you ever mention them. Questions they claimed they'd never care about because they don't look backward. They might start liking old photos on your social media, not recent ones, which would be obvious, but posts from months ago. Or they'll view your stories consistently, but never respond. These are breadcrumbs designed to remind you they exist without actually initiating contact. Some avoidants will create accidental run-ins. Suddenly they're shopping at your grocery store, working out at your gym, or attending events they know you'll be at. They'll act surprised to see you, but these encounters happen too frequently to be coincidental. The nuclear option, they'll reach out with some practical excuse. I have something of yours, or I need to ask you something about shared experience. These contacts always have plausible deniability, but are really fishing expeditions to gauge your interest level. When you consistently don't bite, when you remain politely indifferent to their breadcrumbs and don't turn practical conversations into emotional ones, their confusion becomes visible. They start trying harder, instead of moving on like they claimed they would, becoming genuinely indifferent to their opinion of you. Imagine someone who's used to being the food critic everyone listens to suddenly discovering that their reviews don't affect restaurant attendance anymore. That's what happens when an avoidant realizes their opinion of you no longer carries weight. Avoidants maintain psychological control through judgment. They believe their assessment of you matters more than anyone else's because they see themselves as more objective and less emotional. When you stop caring about their opinion entirely, their control system breaks down. The shift becomes obvious when they start offering unsolicited opinions about your choices. They'll comment on your social media posts, critique your decisions to mutual friends, or make observations about your lifestyle. This is the opposite of their usual detached indifference. They might start praising things they previously criticized about you. If they used to call you too emotional, they'll mention to others how you're actually pretty level-headed. If they dismissed your interests, they'll suddenly find those same interests worth discussing. You'll see attempts to position themselves as an expert on you. They'll tell mutual friends things like, "I know them better than anyone," or "They're just going through a phase." They need to maintain the illusion that their perspective on you is uniquely valuable and accurate. The most telling sign? They'll start seeking validation for their opinions about you from others. Instead of keeping their thoughts private like they used to, they'll fish for agreement about your choices, your personality, or your relationships. They need external confirmation that their judgment still matters, showing that you're grateful the relationship ended. Think of this like someone who's always been told they're the best chef in town, discovering that people are genuinely relieved when they stop cooking for them. The foundation of their identity crumbles when they realize they weren't the prize they thought they were. This destroys their fundamental belief that they were the valuable one in the relationship. Avoidants expect you to have regrets, to miss what you had, or to feel like you lost something precious. Genuine gratitude for the ending contradicts their entire self-concept. You'll notice them fishing for signs of regret through mutual friends. Questions like, "Do they ever talk about our relationship?" Or, "Have they mentioned missing anything about us?" They need confirmation that you see the breakup as a loss rather than a gain. They might start highlighting positive memories from your relationship to others. Stories about trips you took, ways you were compatible, or good times you shared. This is unusual behavior for avoidants, who typically prefer to forget past relationships entirely. Some will try to remind you of what you gave up by choosing to leave or let them go. They'll mention achievements, improvements in their life, or opportunities you're missing out on. This is their attempt to create retroactive FOMO about your decision. The most desperate behavior. They'll try to recreate positive experiences you shared with other people, then make sure you know about it. The restaurant you discovered together, the activity you enjoyed, or the tradition you created. They'll repeat it and document it publicly. When your response to all of this remains consistent gratitude for the experience being over, their behavior becomes increasingly erratic. They can't compute genuine thankfulness for losing them because it contradicts their core belief about their own value, treating them like any other person. Avoidants expect to maintain special status in your life somehow. Even after breakups, they assume they'll remain in a unique category, not quite enemy, not quite friend, but definitely not ordinary. When you treat them with the same energy you'd give any casual acquaintance, their special status dissolves. It's like being a VIP member somewhere, and suddenly discovering your membership has been downgraded to regular customer without anyone telling you. The perks are gone, but you keep expecting special treatment. You'll see attempts to recreate the intimate dynamic you used to share. They'll reference inside jokes, bring up shared memories, or communicate with the same tone they used during the relationship. This is their way of trying to maintain emotional specialness without actual commitment. They might test whether you'll give them special consideration for requests or favors. Small asks that any friend could make, but they're really testing if you still see them as deserving unique treatment. Your consistent casual politeness, the same energy you'd give a coworker or neighbor, becomes deeply unsettling for them. They're used to either intense connection or dramatic conflict. Ordinary treatment is foreign territory that highlights how unremarkable they've become in your life. Moving on without explanation or closure conversation. When you simply continue your life without needing to process, analyze, or understand what happened between you, something interesting occurs. They start creating explanations for your behavior because the absence of drama confuses them. Avoidants are prepared for emotional confrontations, tearful conversations, or angry demands for answers. They're not prepared for you to just move forward. Your lack of need for closure becomes the loudest statement you could make. You'll hear through others that they're offering theories about your behavior. They're in denial, they're pretending not to care, or they'll process it eventually. These explanations help them maintain the illusion that your lack of emotional response is temporary rather than genuine. Some will attempt to create closure conversations themselves. They'll bring up the relationship, try to explain their perspective, or hint at unresolved issues. When you respond with polite disinterest rather than engagement, their confusion becomes visible. The most telling behavior is when they start treating your indifference as a mystery to be solved rather than a simple lack of investment. They can't accept that you've genuinely moved on because it implies they weren't as impactful as they believed, becoming the emotionally available person they claimed didn't exist. This is like watching someone who insisted that unicorns don't exist suddenly see one grazing in their backyard. When you develop genuine emotional maturity and availability with others, it challenges their entire worldview about human nature. Throughout your relationship, they likely insisted that real emotional connection was impossible, that people who wanted it were naive, or that lasting love was a fantasy. Your growth into emotional availability proves they were wrong about fundamental aspects of human connection. Notice how they respond to evidence of your emotional development. They might dismiss it as an act or temporary behavior. They need to maintain their belief that deep emotional connection is impossible rather than admit they were simply incapable of providing it. Some will try to take credit for your growth. I taught them to be more independent, or our relationship helped them mature. This is their way of maintaining superiority while acknowledging your positive changes. The nuclear response is when they start attempting emotional availability themselves, but only after seeing it work for you. Suddenly, they're in therapy, practicing vulnerability, or talking about emotional growth. The timing reveals that your success motivated their efforts, not genuine internal desire for change. Living your best life publicly without mentioning them. Your thriving visibility becomes a constant reminder that their absence improved rather than diminished your life. Think of it like a plant that was struggling in shade, suddenly blooming in full sunlight. The contrast is impossible to ignore. Avoidants expect your life to show some evidence of their impact, positive or negative. When your social media, mutual friend interactions, and general energy reflect genuine happiness that has nothing to do with them, their significance gets called into question. They'll start monitoring your content more closely, looking for signs of struggle, loneliness, or decline. Your consistent positivity and growth become a silent refutation of their importance in your emotional world. Some will try to insert themselves into your narrative by commenting on posts, liking photos, or making their presence known in your social sphere. These actions contradict their usual preference for emotional distance and reveal how much your visible happiness bothers them. The most desperate behavior is when they start posting their own best life content in response to yours. This creates a weird competition they initiated but can't acknowledge, because admitting they're competing would mean admitting they care about your opinion, something they've always claimed not to do. Never trying to fix or understand their emotional issues. When you stop trying to decode them like a puzzle that needs solving, something shifts in their behavior. It's similar to being a mystery novel that suddenly realizes no one cares about the ending anymore. Throughout the relationship, they likely felt superior because you were invested in understanding their emotional complexity. Your attempts to figure them out fed their ego and reinforced their belief that they were uniquely deep and complicated. Your complete lack of interest in their psychological landscape becomes deeply unsettling. They're used to people being fascinated by their emotional unavailability, treating it as a challenge to overcome or a depth to explore. You'll see attempts to regain your psychological curiosity. They might hint at personal struggles, mention therapy breakthroughs, or share insights about their behavior. These are baits designed to reignite your interest in their inner world. When you respond with polite indifference rather than renewed fascination, they lose a major source of ego validation. Being emotionally complex only feels superior when someone cares enough to try understanding that complexity. Being completely fine with zero contact forever, your genuine comfort with permanent separation destroys their backup plan. Avoidants often maintain mental escape routes, the possibility of future contact, reconciliation, or renewed connection. When you close that door completely and seem relieved rather than sad about it, their contingency planning crumbles. Most people struggle with permanent endings, especially with significant relationships. Your apparent ease with total disconnection suggests either that they weren't as important as they thought, or that you're more emotionally independent than they believed possible. They'll test your commitment to no contact through various means: mutual friend inquiries, social media interactions, or emergency communications designed to gauge whether you'd respond if they really needed you. Your consistent unavailability, not angry unavailability, but genuinely disinterested unavailability, becomes a statement about their relevance in your life. They expected to remain somewhat important forever, even if contact was minimal. The most revealing behavior is when they start creating reasons why contact might be necessary: shared belongings, mutual obligations, or practical matters that require communication. These manufactured necessities reveal their discomfort with your comfort about permanent separation. Why these actions work specifically on avoidant egos. Like a house built on a foundation of sand, their emotional superiority complex only stays stable when certain conditions remain constant. Their ego feeds on being the emotionally superior one in any dynamic. When you remove yourself from emotional investment, competition, or pursuit, you eliminate their primary source of validation. They can't feel superior to someone who isn't playing the game they're designed to win. The silence of these actions is what makes them so devastating. Dramatic responses give avoidants something to dismiss or analyze. Silent indifference gives them nothing to work with, except the growing realization that they are not as unforgettable or impactful as they believed. Most importantly, these behaviors reveal the gap between their self-perception and reality. They see themselves as prizes to be won, mysteries to be solved, or challenges to be conquered. When you treat them as ordinary people who simply aren't right for you, their entire identity framework starts to collapse. The beauty is that you don't need to explain, justify, or announce any of these actions. Their effectiveness comes from authenticity, not performance. When these behaviors come from genuine growth and indifference rather than strategic manipulation, their impact on an avoidance ego becomes undeniable. Have you noticed your avoidant ex displaying any of these behaviors when you stopped giving them the emotional attention they expected? Drop a comment about which reaction surprised you most. If this helped you understand how avoidant egos really work, like this video and subscribe for more insights about attachment patterns and relationship dynamics. Thanks for watching.